All right, all right. Welcome to the Savvy Sab Show on RBN. We're doing something a little bit different tonight. No news. We actually have a panel. I think this is going to be really lit. Nick is here to host with me tonight. What's up, Nick?
What's popping? What's going on, my friends, my family? This is going to be a great panel. My RBN sister, Savvy Sab, surrounded by a ton of great, intelligent women on this panel today. It's going to be a good conversation.
All right. And I'll let Lucy and Missy introduce themselves as well.
Hi, my name is Lucy. I have a channel called Blue Moon Red Wine, and I'm really just, here to help out with whatever you guys need.
Hi, I'm Missy. I feel like I'm at an AA meeting or something. I do some things sometimes, and I tweet a lot. So yeah, that's me.
And Fiorella just entered the room.
Hey, so I guess we're introducing ourselves. So I'm Fiorella. I have my show, The Combo Couch with Pasta, and we specialize a lot in elections and going over there. We're going to go to Brazil next, and I am also a journalist for RT.
Awesome. So I think behind the scenes, we've been talking about electoral politics and whether or not our vote actually matters. And I know that Fiorella, along with Pasta, have been on the ground for multiple elections, not just in the US, but also in South America. Lucy, I know you have your opinion about this. Misty, I know how you feel about this. So I'm just going to open it up to the panel. Do you feel US elections are fixed, and why is that? Feel free to jump in.
Yes, of course they are. I mean, Savvy, I have to, it's, excuse me. It's a little weird to me that this is still a conversation that we're having when it's so blatantly apparent. And it's very strange to me. Fiorella and I have talked about this numerous times, that prior to the 2020 election, it was common knowledge that our elections are ridiculously awful. They consistently rank dead last amongst Western democracies for election integrity. 12-year-olds can hack into our voting machines. They're unable to be audited. It's proprietary software, all of those things. And so it's very strange to me that this is a conversation we're still having. Our elections are crap. Your vote does not matter. I know that hurts a lot of people's feelings that, are still stuck in the electoral system, thinking that that's a way that you're going to get change. It's just not. So in my opinion, yes, our elections are fixed.
Misty, are you saying I shouldn't be sending my $15 to John Fetterman right now? Is that what you're implying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Stop sending money to politicians. They don't work for you.
Are you telling me that the left wasted all his countless money and resources on the Nina Turner campaign?
Yes.
Are you telling me that, Misty?
Yeah, that could have gone to mutual aid. That could have gone to building other systems outside of the system we currently have. Yes, you wasted your money. And I know that, listen, that's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow. I gave money to Bernie Sanders. I wish I could get that money back. In 2016. I was done after 2016. Some of y'all hung out for 2020, which I don't know why, but you did. I get it. It's a hard pill to swallow that you have invested all this time, money, energy, resources into this system, and it doesn't work. But we have to learn from that mistake instead of continually perpetuating it. So yeah, it's a very strange thing to me that we have to keep having this conversation.
And that's
some people don't believe it. Some people don't believe it, Misty. I was talking about this with people last week, and they're like, "No, what are you saying? So we should just do absolutely nothing?"
That's not what we said. Am I doing absolutely nothing? No, I'm doing things. We're all doing
more
things.
than most. More than 99%.
You know what I mean? Stupid. Anyway.
And the reason why this panel even started was because it was Savvy and I was with Lucy. We was on a call in and we were just ranting about this. And then we had to bring Fiorella. We got to bring the Convo Couch on. We got to bring Misty on so we can actually talk about this on RBN. Because it just doesn't make sense for as a left movement to invest as much resources. I actually want to hear from Fiorella as well, because I remember you made a great point. When you look at the global South, there's a reason why they were getting election wins. There's a reason why it's worth time investing in electoral politics in the global South. But as it is right now, it seems like a waste of time in the United States. Do you want to add to that, Fiorella? That's some of your position?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with Misty. I was a Bernie supporter, as you guys know, in 2016 and in 2020, but quickly that ended right away after I figured out that his campaign was completely co-opted. And I got a lot of flack for that. For, I was told that I was just trying to destroy, that I was being negative, but really, when you know that we don't have fair elections, because nobody can ever prove to me that they know for sure that their vote counts, because we don't have a mechanism to check that your vote goes through. Our elections are run on a closed source system, on black box voting, which is basically like a company of a shell company of a shell company owns the like the electronic machines, and so we can't look into it and have an audit. And so they tell people, oh, we have an audit, but it's not an audit. It's basically just like a test to see how well the machines are working. In Latin America, on the other hand, you have hand counting of paper ballots. You have people that are always checking. They do it a public counting of everything that goes on. I mean, in what we know as third world countries, which I don't even like calling them that. I like calling them developing countries, because they have fair elections. And countries that have been victims of U.S. imperialism, right? Countries like Colombia and Honduras. Honduras, that was couped in 2009 via Hillary Clinton under the Obama administration, and Colombia, that we know is the only NATO partner in Latin America. They have managed, in spite of having paramilitary, like, and like the closest thing to fascist, like narco governments, in spite of having that, the people really got to know their election system. They got out there and they were like, we're going to protect our elections. We're going to do whatever we can to make sure we have fair elections. And they invite international observers. In spite of all the problems, they managed to have better elections than we do, because there's a paper trail, there is public counting, like I said, and people are really aware, knowledgeable of the election system, and they know that their elections haven't been fair. So they like make sure, because guess what? Their life depends on it, because they're fighting for economics, they're fighting to have water, they're fighting to have roads, they're fighting to literally not be killed. Whereas here in the United States, we get really sidetracked for a lot of things in terms of the things that we're fighting for. It's a lot more, and I'm not trying to minimize some social issues that are important, but it's a lot more symbolics when it comes to the liberal and the Democratic Party and the synthetic left. There's a lot more symbolics to it. And so what ends up happening is there's no unity in that. And so we never really attack the problem, because now questioning the election is a right-wing talking point. Whereas before, I mean, Democrats were the ones questioning elections all the time. So now you're some sort of right-wing Republican for questioning the elections. And so another thing I want to say real quick before I pass it on is, when I go to elections in Latin America, I have yet to go to a Latin American country that doesn't require strict identity or strict mechanisms to know who you are as a person, but they make it possible for everybody to have an ID. So like, you could have literally people living in the mountains of Peru, in the rural areas of Colombia, and they somehow have an ID, but we make it impossible for people in North America, in the United States of America, to get an ID. And so then it's kind of like a two-way situation, where it should be easy for everybody to have a form of identification. And it's not just an ID, it's like an address. They're very specific. In Nicaragua, for instance, they marked your thumb so you couldn't double vote. In Colombia, they use in Nicaragua, in Honduras, and they use this fingerprinting situation where they take your fingerprint. And I'm not a fan of like technological uses too much, but I get it, because it's security. So what you have to do is balance out the security with the accessibility. It can't be too, like, you can't just have a free-for-all and have everybody vote online, because we don't have the mechanisms for that, because it's easily hackable. But we also can't demand all these controls to make it impossible for people to vote, especially poor people, obviously, and certain communities that obviously certain people don't want them to vote. So in the United States, we have a very particular situation where we have to find that medium. And I think the conversation generally goes, oh, you're a right winger if you want this, or you're too liberal if you want that, and you want, the rights, like, oh, the illegals vote and stuff. But none of that is true, because it's just not true. And like, we've seen the comparison between the US elections and the Latin American elections. And I think what we need to find is what works for the United States and what works for that particular government, because it's not going to be the same as Nicaragua, Honduras, or any other country. But we need something, because right now our elections are not fair and free. So it's pointless to give your money to politicians Do you think the most powerful government in the world that overthrows democracies all over the world, that coups every other country just because they feel like it, is going to willingly give you an ability to vote them out? They're just not going to do that. We're past that point.
Lucy.
Yeah, so I mean, I live in the state of New York. I guess my appeal would be like Fiorello said, that she says it's kind of interesting how they've now made questioning elections a right-wing talking point. So my bid would go out to, I guess, like your regular Biden voter, even. Um, uh, I remember elections being unfair since way before Bernie Sanders, like since Al Gore Bush, the famous Al Gore Bush election. Um, and the Democrats didn't fight that back. That was like a warning signal to me that, wow, like voting doesn't work and voting for this party is useless. And then, in 2020, the primary had already ended by the time it got to New York. So we never really like had a say there either. So, I think there are some merits, maybe to the electoral college if you're looking at it from a specific point of view. But clearly, you're leaving out the votes and the voices of the most populous parts of the country. You know, um, uh, Places like New York, California. I'm not saying that those places should override, the Midwest or less populated parts of the country, but you certainly shouldn't be ignoring the most populous parts of the country. And that seems to be what our system does. Um, so that's one thing. I have stopped voting very recently because I realized it really doesn't do anything at all. Um, I guess the reason I'm on this panel is because I mentioned on the other panel that I actually do vote. I don't vote in Argentina, but I'm Argentinian American. And a few years ago, I got the citizenship for safety reasons, really only because I would visit there. And a few years ago, it was actually dangerous to walk around with an American passport, so I just like decided to get a double, a double just for safety purposes.
Why was it
Basically,
dangerous?
well, it was dangerous because there was a lot of theft at the time after like the economic collapse. I really just like needed a local ID because I was like staying at my grandmother's house, and I just did not want to run the safety risk of like walking around with American ID. Um, so at that time, that was like my reason for getting the citizenship. It wasn't actually like me wanting to be a citizen. But ever since I realized um, that elections there are actually run more fairly than they are here, I started to vote
Yeah.
at the embassy in New York City, and I was like an observer of that election, and I voted in it. And the way it was run is basically all on paper ballots. They do require an ID, and they require everyone to have an ID. In fact, they almost didn't let me vote because I didn't have a completely updated ID, because I hadn't been there in so long. And they they have one person from each party observe every vote. Okay, so basically, like let's say you have a table, um, and you are observing 200 votes. You have one person from each party observing every vote. You count the 200 ballots in front of the paper ballots in front of a representative of the other party. Okay. And then you tally up the count. And then let's say there's like 8 tables there, for like a small district or, a voting location, whatever. You count them all up, and then you report it at the location. Um, so then when the votes get aggregated, there's like a trail in like every spot, and there's one person from each party, and these are like volunteers, that has observed every vote. Think about that, like in the US, it's like these electronic machines, it's like none of these volunteers get to observe how many people voted for what. It just like all goes into some mysterious electronic hackable thing that gets counted up by a company owned by who knows, owned by I don't know who. Like I'm sure maybe Misty and Fiorello knows who owns these machines, but this is completely untraceable. So like in the United States, it's like you have exit polling to confirm at the polling location to to like try to approximate what people voting for. Personally, I actually think that we should be doing our own elections. Like if the government doesn't allow us to, we should be doing our own paper ballots at each poll location. Which is like maybe something that's not as easy to do in a very populated area, but I feel like in a small town, you could definitely do the whole paper ballot thing and be like, look, this was our count. You know what I mean? You're electronic, whatever, you can say whatever you want, but this was our count, and not depend so much on like exit polling and the machines and this or that. It's actually very simple to request ID and to put some paper ballots in a box. Like forget the whole hackable machine thing. I really think with enough like organization, it should be possible to at least like run some non-governmental election controls, at least at a few poll locations. That's how I see it.
There's something I want to show really quick, because this is another problem that I think happens with electoral politics. And some of you may have seen this before, but I just want to show the graph. So this is the study that's done by Gillens. It's that Princeton study that talks about policy change. And what Gillens found, I'm actually going to, I don't know why it's so small. Okay. What Gillens found is that when it comes to class in this country, let me go to the other one. Whoops, sorry. That low income and middle income people actually have no impact on policy change. But people who are wealthy, and that's this graph here, people who are wealthy, the elites, notice how the line goes up. Not up like how it should go up, but it goes up right here. If you go back to the chart here for low income and middle income, that line stays flat. And that's a reality, because basically that shows you who politicians are actually serving.
Well, that's what happens when you allow corporations and billionaires to buy your government. I mean, that's essentially what has happened. And it happened a long ass time ago. We haven't lived in like a democracy or, it's so laughable to me that, Democrats are out there like, oh, democracy's on the ballot. No, it's not. It's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Not to mention the fact that Democrats, again, just turned down the opportunity to ban dark money. How's that reform going? How's that reform going, you guys? You're doing a really good job of reforming the Democratic Party. Well done. I mean, it's a joke. It is really just a joke at this point. And it's very frustrating to me that this is something on the left that we have to keep having a conversation about. How many times do you have to get kicked in the face before you're like, maybe we should try something else? It's just weird.
The concept that you just shared, Sabby, is what we talk about all the time: the dictatorship of capital. And we got to talk about, and I would love to get you guys' thoughts on this as well. What does it mean to say an election is rigged? So if you can predict who wins an election at around a 95% rate based on who raised the most money, which is a fact in this country, that is what you call a rigged election. Like we got to decolonize our mind and stop using the definitions and guidelines that the establishment sets for us. They set that as an okay. Oh well, yeah, they're just lobbyists. No, we don't have to accept that. And you in the graph, I love that you share that, Sabby, because that shows policy as well, and not just the elections. It's the people in charge. And we also have the media give Donald Trump billions of dollars of free media advertising when they have blackouts of more progressive candidates. that's a rigged election. That's media rigging. We got to think about it in multiple terms. So I want to pass it back to Savvy or the panel.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think that people, the first time I showed that graph, some people were upset. Same response. They were just like, well, what are we supposed to do? Nothing. And I'm like, nothing.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
I'm like, sorry, but you need to know the truth. You need to know that the likelihood of you getting kind of policy change, unless you're wealthy, is slim to none. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry if you stood in line for 10, 14 hours to vote. I am. Because I look, I didn't have to stand in line that long, but I know people who did. So I'm sorry, but we're giving you this information so that going forward, you'll think twice about that.
That rebuttal makes me really sad, Sabby. I'm sorry. I know I've been talking a lot, but that I have to just say this. That rebuttal makes me really sad because it's like people are incapable of thinking outside the box. Like, oh, well, we just have to like voting. That's the best we can do. That's not it. That's not the only thing you can do. There are lots of other opportunities to affect change in your communities. You can participate in mutual aid. You can start building systems outside of the system that we're currently in. There's just so many things that you can do. And it just makes me sad that people have been kind of beaten down to the point where, this is the best we get. That's just not acceptable. It's just not.
Right. And that's by design because, so to answer your question, what does it mean that an election is rigged? So an election can be rigged, there's the mechanical ways that like the elections are rigged. And then there's also the ways you pointed out, like wealth and lobbyists and corporations and all that. So that's the way we know in general, that's more acceptable that elections are rigged, that people in the Bernie contingent accepted, okay, elections are rigged this way. For example, Joe Biden went from the 5th place to win the presidency. Kamala Harris became vice president without ever winning a single delegate. That just shows you the mechanisms as to how you can propel a candidate forward. Bernie Sanders was winning, then Obama made a phone call, Pete Buttigieg dropped out, Elizabeth Warren dropped out. New York Times, not the New York Times, the Times magazine put out this whole article talking about how in their words, a cabal of wealthy people came together and through the media and through social media and through pretty much like a lot of rich people, they pretty much propelled Democratic candidates, centrist candidates like Joe Biden forward. And they admitted as much, and they fully said, okay, this is how we influence elections. But it was okay for us to do it because Trump is the fascist and Trump is so bad. So a lot of people actually accepted that the elections were manipulated, but they said it was okay because Trump was so bad. So that's one way that's obviously it's rigged because the system itself is a problem. And then you have the actual mechanisms of the election where you have, for example, 7 hours, 6 hours, 5-hour lines that don't exist in third world countries or in developing countries where, people have to literally go through places where there's no roads, but somehow they get in and out of a voting place. We time it every time between like 3 minutes and 8 minutes was at a very busy place. And that's nothing compared to the lines I witnessed for the primary in 2020 in Los Angeles, where people literally were starving and they had to either leave to go take care of their kids, their dog, go to work, whatever, or they had to stand in line and wait for somebody to deliver food to them because they were there for like 7 hours, where there were machines that didn't work at a college campus of thousands of students. There was like 5 machines that worked and like the other, 10 machines didn't work. And how do you have such little machines in such a heavily populated area where young people, of course, where we know their votes go, is going to go? And so those are that's like the front of the house, like mechanisms of that. The back of the house is, this is how Pasta always describes it. The back of the house is who's counting these votes, because the famous saying is it's not about who the votes, it's about who's counting the votes. Like Lucy said, in Argentina and Nicaragua, like in my experience in Peru, in Colombia, in Honduras, they count the votes publicly. They have every member of every party there to witness, like one member from each party there to witness. And some of these countries do have voting machines. However, it's backed by a direct paper count. So you can compare the manual tabulation to the voting tabulation. We don't have any of that at all in the United States. In the richest, wealthiest country in the world, they tell you, they just basically, you're in line and they're like, oh, Hillary won. And you're like, wait a minute, how do you know? And then they're like, oh, because it's the statistical probability that because of what we know, blah, blah, blah. But then you flash back to 2020 when the same thing was happening with Trump and Biden, and they refused to call it. I mean, Trump had already won certain states, and then they were like, actually, we're not going to call it yet. And I was up all night watching everything that was going on, and they did the opposite. And so that, of course, even if people don't want to believe that that election was unfair in any way, that in itself propels people a distrust in the system. So when you have a distrust in the system, what happens is you have apathy, and then you have apathy. People just don't pay attention; they tune out, and so that is what they want. They want people to tune out, and they want people to think that if they just vote harder, it'll solve everything. What they don't want people to do is to actually find solutions to fix things, or to really realize that it's going to take more than voting to change a system that is corrupt at its core. Because you can't fix, at this point where we are, I don't believe, and this is where Pasta and I differ, because he still thinks like if you continue to vote and if you continue to do things, we can eventually catch them cheating. But I believe if we do catch, even if we do catch them, they're going to they control every mechanism. They're not going to allow us. Yeah, they're literally gangsters, and they have their gangs, and it doesn't matter. Both parties are guilty of it, whether it's the Republican, the Democrat, and even if you are a third party person, if you're not tackling this issue, then to me you're not serious about it. And that's why I'm not even with the third parties. Like, I believe in third parties, I believe we should have them, but I don't believe those are possible because the system is set up to screw them. The system is set up to not allow them to get anywhere near the forefront. And so that's why it's when you say it's rigged, well, yes, but the whole system is. It's not just our elections, it's the system as a whole. The elections are just an illusion of choice. You don't have a choice. And this is why when the United States goes around calling, Putin a dictator, calling Assad a dictator, calling all these people dictators, even if you believe they are awful people, even if you were to believe that, the United States is the longest running dictatorship, because it doesn't matter whether we shift from Democrat to Republican, our foreign policy, our national security state, and our military industrial complex remains the same. And we, the people, end up losing no matter who's the president, the puppet.
That was fire.
And like Fiorella said, when she's saying a member of each party, it's literally like it was literally like my mom watching the election, or like the neighbor that that's I'm sure everybody has like a neighbor that constantly volunteers like at the election, locate at the poll location. So it's like regular people, regular volunteers. It's not like members of the Democratic Party, or like you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's literally like regular people observing the elections. So I don't know. I feel like there's nothing to do here. One thing I would have to add is, like, obviously there's going to be a lot of different kinds of views. Like, there's people that are like, no, voting will never work. It's pointless, because some people are very, like, they don't even believe in elections. A lot of people don't even believe that the democratic method works ultimately. But what I would argue is, like, a lot of these countries that, for all like extensive purposes, like the Overton window is far more to the left than in the United States. They've put effort into improving their election system, right? So, for like, with what moral high ground do we have to say, like, no, we shouldn't put energy into improving our system? I can understand why it's frustrating. Like, I don't want to put too much energy into reforming our electoral system. I do look down a little bit on people trying to, for example, get ranked choice voting passed state by state, because I feel like this is such a long, drawn out process. Same as the people that are doing that for Medicare for all. Like, they're just trying to do it state by state, and I just don't know when this is going to end. I feel like it would be better to attach something like, just like a concept like electoral reform, to any mass mobilization that happens. I feel like that could have been done in 2020. But you know, I think really identity politics swooped in 2020 and made it seem like, we are only protesting about police brutality. It's about police brutality. It's not about the economy. It's not about the fact that our system is failing in general. It's not about the fact that our electoral college itself is racist. And they managed to kind of like I feel personally like George Floyd was a victim of racism. I also feel like he was a victim of class politics. I also feel like he was a victim of many things. But I'm a white woman, so we are at a point where people are like, you can't say something if you're not, you're not like the underrepresented group, or there was a lot of identity politics playing there. What I saw, and I'm sure I don't want to get into it too much, but what I saw with the Chilean protests, which were in 2019, not too far from the protests here in 2020, and there were also protests against police brutality, literally, and there were student protests. And what they managed to do there was they kind of joined, they created more of an alliance between the different groups that were protesting, and managed to not be as divided over identity politics by just coming together on the common agreement that they needed a new constitution and a general reform of the electoral system. So even if they don't agree about every single individual thing, in the United States, that didn't happen in 2020. They're very successful here in dividing us according to identity politics. Like, are you white or black, rural or urban? We're not all, so, I don't know what it is here exactly. This is not the only country where there's racism or classism. Like, all of these things are global. But it does seem to be the only country, from what I've seen, that identity politics really works very well in terms of dividing people among parties and just kind of halting forward progress on these overarching goals. And everybody acts like they have to agree on every single thing to get anything done. And I'm kind of losing energy a little bit with that. It really makes me lose a lot of steam when people are like, this is not revolutionary enough. I'm not going to help with this. Or this is too revolutionary. I'm not going to help with this. We got to agree that in general, things are not working out. So, maybe we should reform the electoral system. We're not going to agree on everything, but let's get something done. Anything.
Why do you love fascists, Lucy? Every time I'm like, we should work together on some things. You're a Nazi. What are you talking about? It's so, you're right, though. It's that identity politics thing. They did it with the trucker protest. There was a single Nazi flag, and everybody's like, oh, we got to discard this entire movement. What are you talking about? And now everybody wants to send weapons to Nazis in Ukraine. What are you doing? It's mind-blowing to me. But you're right. You're absolutely right. They are very, 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 and Nick says it all the time. The United States is the most propagandized country on earth. He's absolutely right. Propaganda works very well. Nobody does it better. Nobody does it better. I mean, people talk about North Korea and Russia and propaganda. Nobody does it better than this country. And it is unbelievably devastating. They are manufacturing your reality for you. They're turning you against your neighbors. And they do that so you don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. And that's, it's just very frustrating. It's very self-defeating that we keep going in these circles.
We always have a fun time talking about this, Misty, because they always make up conspiracy theories about a red-brown alliance. That is exactly that. It's a conspiracy theory. That's workers working together to improve the quality of life. Something that always happened. It's not.
People say I'm a fascist, like I'm a Nazi because I'm willing to talk to people. Y'all, I'm a free speech activist. I don't know if you guys know this, but fascists are not big fans of the free speech thing. They're not really good with that.
And fascists wouldn't work with me, guys.
Yeah.
Period. They
Yeah,
win.
no. And I've never advocated for working with actual fascists. There's a whole lot of space in between Bernie Sanders and literal Nazis. There's a lot of people in between here that we could be having conversations with who actually agree with us on a lot of things that we could be working with to get those things done. I'm selfish. I want to get some shit done.
Right.
And everybody's more concerned about like feeling smugly superior, and like, having their cool little club that, oh, well, we're not going to work with those people. We're too good for those people. Well, I mean, then you can sit over there and get nothing. You know what I mean? That's what's going to happen.
I just hate the hypocrisy because they fearmonger over this fake red-brown alliance, but they ignore the very open progressive Zionist alliance.
Yes.
Like when John Ferriman gave bed with Zionists who believe in ethnic cleansing and genocide, that's okay. The Zionist progressive alliance is okay. But if I live in Missouri, a very red state, if I work with my conservative neighbor, that's red-brown alliance. It's nonsense. But to the topic, I do want to bring something up because you guys brought something that was profound, like regarding voting wait times, and this is what I talk about in terms of strategy. And there's just like this debate, and you guys kind of talk about this debate of whether we should even show up to vote, whether elections are even worth it. There's just even among radicals, there's this question, and whether we even should participate or not. And this is I want to give you guys thoughts on this as well. It's to me, I think it's all about strategy. Now, me, I vote because I'm lucky. I live 5 minutes away from a library. I mean, walking distance, 5 minutes. So I wake up early because my body is broken. I used to wake up 5 a.m. every day to train. So I wake up at like 6 a.m. every day. And I usually, on election day, I wake up early. I literally can vote in 5 minutes and be done. And we got ballot initiatives here. So they got recreational marijuana on the ballot this year. So to me, I'm going to be up early. There's no reason for me not to go at least fill that vote in for that ballot initiative. And that's why I advocate for third parties. So if I don't fill that ballot initiative, give me at least a third party to vote for, right? But on the other hand, that is not that's not me advocating voting. Because if you're in that situation that Sabby was explaining earlier, because people get really upset when we talk about this because they waited in line for 3 hours and they hate the implication that they waste their time. And what I say as a working class, if you're gonna lose money to vote, because a lot of people are hourly workers and you take time off, you're paying to vote. You guys understand that? Unless you're a salary worker, you pay to vote in this country. Why would you pay to vote in a rigged election? I can vote because it literally takes no time. Even when I was working, it literally takes no time out of my life. But if you got to call in, if you're a student and you got to wait in line for 2-3 hours, like a lot of Bernie students did, and that causes you to not be able to study, that's when it becomes harmful. To me, it's not harmful. It takes no amount of my time. But I do want to pass it to the panel because I do think the strategy of that is important because that's time you could be spending taking care of your family, doing other stuff instead of wasting your time on something that really doesn't matter. If you can't vote quick and easy, my position is I think you should do it. If you can't, don't do it. It's a waste of time. But go ahead, I'll pass it to the panel or Savvy.
Yeah, that's a good point, Nick. Because same thing in Massachusetts, it doesn't take me a long time to vote here. They get you in, they get you out. But
it's the same in Ohio. It's real fast.
Yeah, same thing, really fast. Yeah, but I have friends in Atlanta, and they said it takes so long just to get through, and that can deter people and make people just want to turn around and go home. And honestly, I don't blame them. But I think Nick brought up a good point about ballot initiatives and about local politics, and that's where I tell people I think we need to put more of our focus on local politics. Nick has a ballot initiative coming up this fall. We have a ballot initiative coming up in Massachusetts this fall. I know not every state is a BI state, but I think people need to pay more attention to the local elections that are happening instead of just only going out to vote when it's a presidential election, because you need to see like who your city councilors are. You need to know what the mayor is doing. You need to know what the governor in your state is doing, because that's going to impact you probably a lot faster than politics on the federal level. And I wish more people would do that. I don't know why. I think we've kind of been conditioned to only go vote in the presidential election, but there are other, local elections that I think are actually more important, especially now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned. So, and that's been thrown back to the states.
Right. So in LA, I've witnessed how local politics is actually something that you can change. I mean, I've had friends that have worked in for city council campaigns and have done these ballot initiatives and have stopped corruption from happening in their own neighborhoods, but it's literally a lot of time, effort, dedication. It takes somebody that's going to like whip people into shape, and try to get everybody to be out there protesting. For example, one of my friends was protesting against developers, which is a huge problem in Los Angeles. And they managed to get a couple people they liked that were good in the city council. They managed to oust the people that were terrible, because city council, in LA, it's still hard because California in general is a very controlled state. I mean, you have some of the worst, most notorious politicians, from Nancy Pelosi to Gavin Newsom to Dianne Feinstein. I mean, you have this elite of politicians. So it's still hard in general. It's like impossible when it comes to Congress and the Senate. But when it comes to city council, it's easier to actually find a way to actually vote and like to actually get something done in some ways, because it's not that many people vote. It's still like you still don't have a huge turnout, but in terms of activism, in terms of advocating some sort of change, it's possible to do it, and I've seen that. So I agree, and I feel differently for local things where people can do whatever they can, to federal, which includes Congress and the Senate, because that is fully like entirely controlled. I mean, that is like they will not allow somebody that's actually a challenge to the establishment get in there. And we've seen that with the Squad. If the Squad was an actual challenge to the status quo, to the establishment, they would be gone. Like Cynthia McKinney was pushed out, like others were pushed out, and that's the reality, right? They're not going to allow somebody that's actually like that, and especially in the presidency, where where any president that is challenged has ended up. So I think there's two different ways, and because of everything that's going on, where we feel we're losing a lot of our rights to the government that's increasingly becoming fascistic, that is calling a group of people, right, the Trumpers, fascists, while simultaneously giving weapons to actual fascists. And so you see a lot of these people on the quote unquote left, the synthetic left, that are cheering Joe Biden and saying, oh, this is Dark Brandon. Joe Biden is like really doing this so great and blah, blah, blah. His speech was actually awesome. Like, no, it wasn't. Like you're the new liberals. They're the new liberals. And then we have some of the new right is completely divided. You have like some of the members of the MAGA or the populist right, and then you have like the traditional conservatives that are sort of merging with some of the liberals, like the Lincoln party types, right? And so what you have is basically the recreation of the new Republican Party and the new Democrat Party, and then you have everybody else that's like, neither is the answer, because I'm seeing a lot of people advocate on the left, on the quote unquote left, for Trump. And I'm just like, he's not the answer either. Like he's not, you've had him for 4 years. He hasn't been the answer or the savior you think he is. He's not, he's a rich billionaire. Like he's not going to solve your problems. And so I think the solution to a lot of this, it's hard to say, because people are always like, what is your solution? And while I'm not going to tell you to vote or not to vote, because that's up to you, I don't believe voting in the federal election is going to change anything. I think that we have to come to the point that other people in other countries have come to the point where they're literally in the streets. You've seen how Bolivians go out in the streets to protest their government. You've seen how recently people in the Czech Republic went out, 70,000 of them, to protest against NATO and against sanctions against Russia, because they know that comes back on them. And guess what? It was the far right Republicans, conservative wing, and the Communist Party organizing that protest. That's what a lot of people didn't talk about. It was them organizing the protest, coming together and saying, hey, we disagree on everything, but if we don't stop the fascism that NATO is doing to all of us, we're not even going to get to have a debate about these policies. Right. That's where we're at right now. And Missy, you and I talk about this all the time. In order to have the debate between the left and the right, the libertarian and socialists and all of that, we need to have a country like that is still a government. We don't have that. Nope. And if we're pretty much almost gone. We don't even have a republic, because the right loves to say, oh, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. No, you don't have that either, because the Constitution is going out the window, by the way. So you don't even have that either. So it's like we can't even begin to debate about these issues when none of us have a say. And so that's why I think it's important. Nobody's telling you to go and actually find a member of the Azov battalion and like have a party with them and make out with them. Nobody's saying that. In fact, the only people doing that right now are the idiots with the Ukraine flag on their bio. But what people are saying is like we have to come together in some way and say, okay, are we all being screwed by the system? Yeah. Okay, so can we stop being screwed by the system? Can we allow the people to decide what kind of government they want? The sovereignty is the key issue, and that's the issue in all of these countries that are electing, leftist leaders in Latin America. It's not even about the ideology as much as the fact that they want the U.S. the hell out of their business, and they want their own sovereignty back. We're seeing Pan-Africanism develop in African countries where they're like, hey, we don't want to work with the US anymore because we don't have an equitable relationship with them. But when other countries like Russia come in who have helped us decolonize, yeah, they're giving us more of an equitable partnership. So we'd rather work with them than the West. So it's just kind of like people are kind of trying to regain their sovereignty, and we need to do that here because right now we don't have a sovereignty over what the things that are decided on. Look at who's governing. Look at the people that are in charge. There are a bunch of old people that are very wealthy and are completely out of touch with the things we all need. We're all relatively within, a similar age group here. Yet we don't have that representation at all. We don't have the representation in the class at all. We don't have the only thing we have is the intersectional imperialism that they put in there through people like the Squad to say, oh, see, there you go. See, now you can say, oh, there's a Latina there, there's a Black person there, there's a LGBTQ woman there. Like that's all it is. As Lucy is alluding to with the identity politics, but there's no substance behind it because none of us are getting any of it. So
yeah,
that's a good point.
Like direct action, but in order to get to that direct action, you're not going to have a checklist that says, oh, this person voted for Trump, this person's libertarian, this person voted for Bernie. Like we're literally never going to get anywhere. And it's only going to happen though, I feel, when people are directly impacted a lot in the United States. And that may happen sooner rather than later, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah,
And I love what you just said, Fee, because we do talk about this all the time, and it's very frustrating to me that people think that we have to agree on everything. Y'all, none of the disagreements that we have, and listen, I'm not diminishing the importance of those discussions. The disagreements that we have across political ideologies are legitimate, they're real, they're important conversations that need to be had, but none of them matter when we're in the current system that we have, because we're not going to get anything. It doesn't matter what you think, it doesn't matter what you want, it doesn't matter if you want to ban abortion or legalize abortion, you're not going to get anything that you want. It's a completely, and Julian Assange has talked about this numerous times. Our ideas about each other and the world around us have been completely manufactured by the same people that lie us into every war. We don't even have, we can see by the way that people throw the word fascist around, calling me a fascist. Like people don't even know the legitimate definitions of terms. And we're out here having these discussions as if they make a difference. They don't. We have to deal with the system that's designed to kill us all first. Then we can, have our disagreements and figure out where we're going from there.
They call ordinary people fascists for disagreeing with them while they literally vote for fascists.
Yes.
I call people fascists all the time, but I'm calling the ruling class fascists. I call Biden a fascist, Trump is a fascist, because it's a fact. Like, what am I supposed to do? Not call them a fascist? It's a fact that these people are fascists.
Yes.
When you start calling ordinary people with no power fascists, you lost the plot.
I'm very powerful, Nick. What are you talking about? I'm incredibly powerful.
I just wanted to add that in 2020, I'll never forget this, on the local news here, there was a video footage of a guy stealing the ballots out of the mailbox.
Yeah.
That's why I just you see.
And this is a great argument for paper ballots. And I'll pass it to you, Lucy. I think you want to chime in. Every election, and Democrats pretend they didn't do this, but they did this in 2016, 2020. They pretend that they are upholding these elections, but when they lose, they complain about it because no one trusts the system. No one trusts these electronic systems. There was reports in 2020 of switching happened, and anyone who brought it up was banned or smeared as a right wing faction. But these are on the ground reports that was confirmed. So there's this mistrust, right? And this mistrust wouldn't happen if you had a paper trail, if you had paper ballots. That alone is another reason to do it. So if you had a public trust, if we had a paper trail there's no, oh my God, did you guys switch the votes or not? Oh my God, my person, you guys switched the votes, didn't you? That will end that, right? Isn't that a net positive? But I want to get Lucy back in here, and I'll pass to you guys.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people say this a lot. I've noticed about the local elections, like, oh, you need to. I'm pay attention more to the local elections because sometimes those have influence. I feel like I've lost most of my hope in local elections too. Maybe it's because I'm from a big city too. Like, the mafia is all over elections in New York City. Like, historically has been. Cities like Chicago, New York. Giuliani had like ties to the mafia. Like a lot of politicians in Chicago were like mobsters. From 100 years ago, not just like today. I think. I really think the problem we have in the US is that a lot of people think that they're like radical anarchists, abolitionists, socialists, communists, she, her, they, like all of this shit. But they still live in a system where they have spent a lot of time either spending time on electoralism or bitching about it. So you might think that, like, we're all, at the end of the day, we're all coming off of this electoral system and this system that has pulled us into paying attention to electoralism as a primary method of doing things. And that it doesn't make any difference if you are a center Democrat or a Republican or a far left communist, whatever. Like, we've all been pulled into the system. This is the system that we live in. So I feel like no matter how radical you think you are, I've noticed, especially with the planning of this last event, that a lot of the people that think they're super radical are really just kind of like an average moderate in another country. And I'm not saying this to be rude, but I just like notice the degree to which people, like, the more labels a person has, like the less likely they are to show up for coffee on a Tuesday. Like, it's just like crazy dealing with people. And so the way I come at it is, like, I'm not going to attach a label to myself. I'm not going to say if I'm moderate or radical. I'm just going to see what works. I'm going to see who shows up. Are the moderates the ones that are going to show up to change the electoral system, or is it going to be the radical, whatever? If you have a way to change the country that is outside the electoral system, I think that's great. But then you actually have to do it. You can't just bitch about electoralism, because even complaining about electoralism is participating in electoralism. It's like a weird thing where the more energy, it's kind of like how much CNN covered Trump. It's like you spend all your time hating on Trump. Well, with electoralism, it's the same thing. If you're spending all of your time hating on electoralism, you are still kind of like participating in it, like in a weird. It's great to like put in that commentary to reject electoralism and to make people realize that it's not working anymore. But at a certain point, it's like, okay, what now? And yes, there's a lot of things you can do, but what things? So it takes a lot of talking and figuring out what is the next step. Like, and I don't think there's like a clear solution, because it's like, yes, a lot of things, but that's like really broad, like what is it that we can actually do? I don't know. Like, I've thought of a little, project that I can do here and there, but it's nothing cohesive. That, like, I haven't been able to think of anything that everyone can participate in at the same time. Like, it's really hard to like figure out a path forward. And I think it's fine to acknowledge that and like say, like, we don't have the answers. Maybe we should like, have more panels, talk, like strategize, and figure out what we can do outside of it. And if it is like coordinated strikes, like this person said, I agree with that. You know, that could be an excellent thing to do, but it also takes a lot of coordination. And when you organize strikes and strike support and all of those things, a lot of people don't show up to that too. So it's really hard to organize. Like,
yes,
it's not easy. And, you know, I think it's definitely a first step to, like, I do think there's some value in saying no to electoralism straight up, because it is true that it sucks up a lot of energy, and that a lot of the energy that goes into that can go into something else. But then the question is, like, what else? And mutual aid is good, but I don't think it's like the end all and be all either. So you know, I think it's hard to figure it out. Personally, I think the best thing would be to support any kind of strike that is led by transportation workers, because those are the people that can shut down the economy the fastest. So I think that would be a good way to spend our energy. But you know, like it's just one of many things at the end of the day. So I don't know. Like, I don't feel like I have the expertise on all things in order to come up with a real answer to this question. Like,
yeah, you want to know why it's a tough it's a tough conversation to have with a lot of people on how to affect change, because unfortunately a lot of people still being delusional about this conversation.
yes.
And when I tell you guys that the only thing that's going to change this country is a violent revolution, it's not me saying I want a violent revolution. I'm just telling you that's the only thing that's going to do it. And that fact does not change whether you want a violent revolution or not. So the reason why we have a hard time talking about real solutions is because we got to talk about solutions that does not involve that. So in order to be realistic, we're like, oh shit, I guess we got to talk about some reforms that may or may not work. So I'm like, oh, I guess we got to do mutual aid so we can have security while we can protest and get some mal reforms. And the best we can do is educate people and get people radicalized to the point where we can have enough of the proletariat where we don't have to put up arms. But I'm telling you guys, I don't think that's going to happen. That's very wishful thinking. And there are a lot of people that just have wishful thinking. And until we have a serious conversation about what the ruling class is not willing to give up, we're not going to be effective. And I know that's very uncomfortable conversation for a lot of people to have. But until we have that conversation, we're just going to be going around circles, wondering why the workers are continuing to lose power. Even like people protest. People are like, we just need more protests. God, people protest all the time. There was historic protests in 2020. What happened?
Nothing. Not a damn thing.
I'm not saying anything's working. When Lucy said mutual aid doesn't work, I'm sure she's saying that it's not effective, and not saying it's not effective tactic. But there are people that believe that just protesting, just mutual aid, like that's gonna be it. It's not. I'm sorry. I know that makes you uncomfortable, but that's just the reality. Now we can talk about if you don't want to get violent, if you want to hold on to your life, you can talk about things you can do in your local life to make your life a little bit more easy to live. But if you want to talk about, again, healthcare, Medicare for all, single payer is not happening without a violent struggle. I'm sorry to tell you guys. That's just a fact. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, because I was going to say, and Nick, you probably saw this. Ro Khanna said so himself. Like, we're never going to get Medicare for all unless you have, he admitted this himself, unless you have a president that is going to not veto it. And we don't have that. And I don't think we're going to have that anytime. Exactly. So there's no other way to go around it. But I think that, you know, something we've been seeing recently, and it's not new, but we're hearing more about it now. These candidates that are being pulled off the ballot who have already met the requirements to get on the ballot. It's not just Matthew Ho. It's also people like Larry Sharp, who, by the way, it was Republicans who took him off the ballot. So Democrats and Republicans, they're both doing it to independent and third party candidates. And I think it's ridiculous. So when people say we need to save and protect our democracy, I'm like, we don't have a true democracy.
No.
And to your point of, I'll pass right back to you, Savvy, but to your point about the president vetoing Medicare for all, this is exactly my point. People always stop there. So if you're actually serious about getting Medicare for all, okay, let's say we get this giant coalition. You guys did it 20 years later. We did it. We got enough senators. Your long-term plan. AOC's son is born. They got Medicare for all. That's the timeline, remember? 20 years later, we finally got Medicare for all. We got enough people that vote for it. But then our president vetoes it. Yeah. Then what? We guys gonna do have a protesting kumbaya.
Well, and also, how many people die in that 20 years? Y'all, people are dying. Like, this isn't a joke. Like, this isn't like, oh, we got to be nice to
Yeah.
AOC because she's the best we have. Fuck that shit. People are dying. I don't have to be nice to her. Are you joking? That's
right.
ridiculous. I don't have any patience for that. I have none. Like, these people who want to like take their time and reform from the inside. We got to play the long game. No, we do not. Our brother JB is struggling. I mean, he shouldn't have to. He's struggling. You know what I mean? Like, we all know tons of people who don't have healthcare, who don't have a job, who don't have the ability. They're struggling to pay for their housing. Housing is now, rents are rising and all this other shit. Like, we don't have time for that. We don't have time to like play footsie with AOC and the squad. They're not doing anything for you. And it's very infuriating to me that there are those people who are willing to just be patient and play the long game. Clearly, you are not struggling, and you are not, which, it's mind-blowing to me that you can't even have the empathy for those who are struggling, who are dying, who are,
right.
losing their houses because they get sick or whatever. Like, are you that dense that you are unable to see the absolute insanity that is happening in this country? It's the year of our Lord, 2022, in the United States of America, and we don't have health care, but we're sending billions of dollars to Nazis.
Yeah.
And
We don't
everybody's
have
just cool with that. Everybody's just cool with that, you guys. Everybody's just like, yeah, okay, whatever, it's fine, no big deal.
We don't
Yeah,
have
but
Mississippi, guys.
We have clean water, Misty.
I know.
Clean water.
Yes, we can't even get clean water. It's the year 2022 in the United States. We're the greatest country on earth. We don't have clean water for our people.
How
And yet
is
we're
that
sending
violent?
billions of dollars to Israel. We're sending billions of dollars to Saudi Arabia. We're sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. We're blowing up the globe. We're taking over everybody's resources, and we can't have clean water? Get the fuck out of here. I have no patience for it.
Yes, Misty.
Sorry.
How's that not violent, by the way?
I am violent. I am very violent.
No, I'm saying, like, if people die because what happened in Jackson, Mississippi, which is a government choice, by the way,
Yeah.
how is that not violent?
Look at Red Hill.
Yeah.
The Navy is poisoning the people of Hawaii, and nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit.
But this is why the media, one of the things we need to do that I think it seems very basic, and it seems like, why the hell do we still have to do this? But because we are the most propagandized nation in the world, people are still distracted that all of this stuff is falling apart, and they're also in denial because they've been told since they were little that this is the greatest country in the world and that they can do anything they want. I mean, wait, this is the millennial way. We've all been taught, like, oh, you get a trophy, you get a cookie, you're a winner, you live in the greatest country in the world. Like, this is what a lot of people who've grown up in this generation have been taught, and the generations definitely before that, where it was actually good for a lot of them. And so that we're at the point where people are so propagandized, but what's happening now is that the mainstream media narrative is becoming the less popular narrative. So now you're having like a lot of people who are like questioning COVID, questioning the Russia-Ukraine war. All of that's becoming really popular. So this is why they're censoring everybody now more, because they know, like, okay, like, our narratives are falling apart as everything's crumbling down. So what the people need to do is I'm not saying advocate just straight reform, but have plans as to what you would like it to look like once everything goes to shit, because everything is going to go to shit eventually. And you can't just start then. You have to have some sort of plans, some sort of layouts and foundations to put it out. And I think like, the media and independent media and shows like this, I know it seems kind of cliche, but it is important because you're getting these discussions out, you're getting these voices out to people who didn't really know. And I think every single conflict that they've lied to us about, whether it's the elections, whether it's their handling of the pandemic, whether it's the Russia-Ukraine situation, and now with China, Taiwan, and whatever the next current thing is, in every single facet, they've made a mistake. And we have kind of grown as media, right? When I started my show, there was literally not that many people doing this, and now there's a bunch of people doing this, and that just shows, like, hey, people connected and things like resonated with them. I am suffering this, I'm feeling this, I can relate to this and that, and so there's more and more people talking about it, and that's a good thing, because that means that more and more people are getting these ideas out there. The question is, we're at a race right now with time, because we don't have a lot of time. Like, as Misty says, we don't have time to play the long game. We don't have time to wait for AOC's baby to be born so we can finally all have health care. Like, we don't have time for that, right? We don't have time for however many more GQ covers she's going to get. Like, literally we don't have time. So what needs to be done is some sort of awakening, but the awakening has been co-opted by the liberal sort of symbolic wokeism. Woke was supposed to be a good thing. Like it was supposed to be a positive thing, but they pretty much co-opted it and turning it into just this like neoliberal BS. And then of course the right is so focused on that, and they're both just fighting each other, like hyper focusing on things like the whole issue with the transgender gender reassignment that affects such a small percentage of the population, but it occupies such a vast attention scope of the mainstream media and of all the narratives, right? And so
Are you telling me people are not
so
passionate about
frustrating
women
to me.
swimming? Are you telling me people are not passionate
That
about women?
doesn't listen. It's again important conversation. No doubt. That's an important. We need to have that conversation at some point. But yeah, I don't know, you guys. Kids are going to bed hungry.
I'm sorry. I told you guys I don't care. I apologize. People ask me, "What do you think about trans people in sports?" Sorry, don't care. Literally, don't even have time to think about it.
Yeah.
Literally doesn't even cross my mind. Literally can't even spend a second of my time thinking about that. Sorry, if you got kids, I don't got kids. So sorry, but I don't got kids. I really don't give a shit. I'm sorry.
I have kids and I'm an athlete, and again, it is an important conversation. But on like the laundry list of things we have facing us right now, I'm sorry, it's not even in my top 20. I mean, nobody's dying because somebody is winning a swimming meet. You know what I'm saying? Like again, kids are going to bed hungry. People are dying because they don't have health care. People are living on the streets, and it's just getting worse. And so I don't have the emotional or mental energy to focus on that stuff that again affects a tiny percentage of the population, and it has been made such a hyper focus intentionally. I mean, I don't think anybody should be surprised by that. It's an intentional distraction. Again, not diminishing the importance of it, because here come all the people calling me a transphobe. I'm not. It is like a real thing that we need to have a conversation about, but it's not. Nobody's going to die because Leah Thomas wins a swim meet. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not. I just don't have it in me to put that much energy into it.
Can I?
And I just want to say,
really.
Oh,
I
go
just
ahead.
want to answer this by Murphy. This is a good question. Why does Mississippi, the most poverty-stricken state with the largest non-white majority, always elect the most right-wing racist state government? So I can make the comparison to South Carolina, similar situation, heavily African-American in certain parts of the state. And if you look at Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi is like over 80% African-American, but who's actually coming out to vote? And that's what's important. So you still have like those rural areas in Mississippi where people who may not be African American are the ones coming out to vote at the polls. That's the difference. So I said the same thing when I lived in South Carolina. I was like, how is this a red state when there's so many? I think it's like 55% African American in South Carolina. But then after living there for a while, you realize most Black people there don't vote. So that's a big part of the problem. So that's part of it. Thanks, Murphy.
I want to get Fiorella in there because I know she went chiming with something.
No, and and just to say something about that, it's also the fact that we don't even know if the people that votes count. And
Right.
like the few people that do vote, we don't know. We really don't have a mechanism to check. And if you try to check, they give you the runaround, because we tried to check in LA and they lie. They say they're going to call you. They never call you. You like harass them. They never get back to you. And then it's a whole thing. Like it doesn't ever happen. So there's no accountability to trace that. So we really don't know. And you know why? You know why they have some of the worst state governors in that state? Because they literally aren't governed by the people of that. Like the people are not electing that government, essentially, whether it's from the system or the lack of voting. But because that lack of voting is for a specific reason. People don't vote because they're apathetic or because their vote isn't counting. So either way, it's a systemic issue that it's not solved. And I just wanted to say, in regard to what Misty was saying, how like it's down the line in your worries, and how Nick, you were saying you don't care. Well, it's a very privileged issue. These are issues that we talk about in the United States, are very privileged issues. In other countries, they don't have the privilege of talking about, hey, should we include gender reassignment in healthcare? Like, should we talk about even abortion, which I'm pro-choice. I'm against everything that's been going on with Roe v. Wade. But in other countries, that's not even on the forefront. They're trying to get clean water. They're trying to get,
They're trying to survive.
electricity. They're trying to get roads, education. They're trying to get subsidized housing. So maybe we should realign our priorities a little bit, because guess what? Jackson, Mississippi does not have clean water. Flint, Michigan does not have clean water. Our roads are falling apart. Have you looked at the videos of San Francisco and LA at the state of things? Have you seen the New York subway? I mean, like, the infrastructure is falling apart. It might be time to start paying attention to the infrastructure, literally, that Bernie Sanders has spent so many years talking about, the crumbling infrastructure. Nobody is paying attention to that right now. Literally, where's Bernie? Where's fucking Bernie?
We're doing a lot of things.
What are we?
I feel like we need to be paying a lot more attention to the transportation sector, the transportation workers who like basically hold the future of any kind of general strike in their hands. And I also I want to push back a little bit. People are not going to like this, but whatever. It's just my opinion against this idea of a violent revolution. And I say this, I think what I would support personally is, and this is in a country that says that sanctions are not violence, that I would prefer to see the rich in this country sanctioned, essentially. Like, I don't want to see violence against them. But I would actually want to see a strike.
I think they're gonna shoot first.
I mean, that's a dream, Lucy. That's not
like
gonna
a strike
happen.
that actually sees them, because in 2020, yes, there was violence. There was violence in the protests, and there was counter violence. But the rich still had access to everything they needed. For the most part, they were still in their homes, getting their Amazon deliveries. They didn't go without for 1 second. So I feel like a lot of people, especially like after organizing just one event, a lot of people and I remember this very clearly, like when we went to on Ryan Knight's show, I think, and he was like, and a lot of the people that showed up at the event, they were like, they didn't want to put themselves at risk. You know what I mean? Everybody wants a violent revolution, but nobody wants to be the one to do it. So I actually don't think this is a good
I said I didn't want it.
I don't think anybody wants a violent revolution.
Just to correct you real quick, when I said it,
I don't think anybody wants it.
Yeah, well, I was saying, I'll pass right to you,
Lucy.
Lucy. Yeah, I'll pass right to you, Lucy. But I was saying, I said I don't want a violent revolution. No one wants that. But they're going to shoot first. They are going to shoot first.
They already have, Nick. We're already in it. We're in a class war. We're getting our asses kicked. We've been in it for a long time. What's happening to us is violence. We just said that. The fact that we don't have healthcare, that's violence. They're killing us. They are already perpetuating violence upon us. That's just reality.
I think what I mean is that everybody wants kind of someone else to do it for them, because it's like not pleasant to put yourself at risk. So I think the best thing to do is to just try to figure out, as unrealistic as it might seem, the most peaceful way to get people to assemble as possible, because otherwise people won't even show up. And it might even have to be through completely apolitical means, like, sharing food or whatever. You know what I mean? Like survival skills, like helping people learn, education, like revolutionary education, like helping people get jobs, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Because, I don't know. It really struck me when I went on Ryan Knight's podcast. It seemed like he was like pushing us to do something more disruptive, but he wasn't coming. So you know what I mean? Like, so it's like.
Lucy, I actually agree with a lot of what you say, and I know we got to actually get super fast soon, but I actually agree with a lot of what you say, and we don't want things to get violent. And I think we need to focus on a lot of things that you said we need to focus on. That's why I think we need to focus on education. Like Fred Hampton said, we're not going to have a revolution without education. So we need to build the proletariat up, build our movement up, get that 15% of the population that we need. Because you only need about 15-20% of the population. Then a large amount will just go along with it after you have a large number. Then you're gonna have like 30%, 40% that against you. But those are the people you have to defeat, right? So I think you're right when you say what we need to do right now. Like, these are things we need to improve our movement on. But there's gonna be, and we're gonna hit a wall eventually. Yeah. Like, we want to end the wars. They're not gonna do that with a peaceful conversation. So
Lucy, if you're gonna keep organizing, Please
go
get
ahead.
ready for the fact that everybody's going to armchair quarterback you, but they're not going to be willing to actually, like, I get that all the time. Oh, well, you're not doing it right. Well, then get out there and do it better.
When I
That's
showed up to
not
the
a
George
thing.
Floyd protest, guys,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I might die here. And
Yeah.
when black men like me show up to the streets, we go with the idea that we probably gonna die.
You could die, yeah.
And when I go out, maybe in 20 years when we have protests, I'm probably gonna die. These are things I already like. If you're a revolutionary, you're a true
Maybe
elector.
in
You guys
20 years,
can
you're gonna be
believe
like,
me
I'm
or
old
not.
now.
You gotta be ready for it. I am. You guys believe it or not, but go ahead, Lucy.
Maybe in 20
Bro.
years, you'll be like, I'm old now. You know, like the young people can. I mean, I know a lot of people that are older. They did their thing. You know, like 20s, 30s, 40s.
Yeah.
After a while, they're like, I'm old now. You know, I'm not doing politics.
Yeah, everyone has a role. Everyone had a role in the revolution too. We talk about that all the time. Everyone has a role. Not everyone's gonna be out there in the street. And at a foot, we need people that can provide, that maybe can knit, bake pies for us, right? Like be more. And not everyone's gonna be Rome. Like Rome, I see Rome in the chat. Rome killing the Game of Tour report. Not everyone
Hi,
can do that.
Rome.
But anyway, I know you want to get out. I want to read super chats before we wrap up. Sabby, you got a big show tonight, don't you?
Yeah, well, the reason why we got to wrap up is because I found this out the other day. I'm actually interviewing Cornell West at 7:00.
Woohoo!
So
Go,
I'm
Savvy,
gonna
go.
eat
Yeah,
something really small, really quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we definitely gotta always have you guys on. This is gonna be the far from last time you guys see everyone on this panel on the show. I'm gonna get the super chats and now I actually in.
Hi, JB.
Yeah, JB in the house as well.
I love you, JB.
JB is the heart and soul of this network. I love that dude.
I love JB.
Let's get to some super chats, and I want to get A1 time to plug their stuff as well. Thank you for the $20, Justin. The fact that Dems and Repubs are fighting tooth and nail to keep Greens, Independents, and Libertarians off the ballot should tell you that this strategy is working, and it scares the crap out of the wrong class. Thank you for that $20, Justin. Thank you for the $4.99, Nikki. Paper ballots counted in public and chain of custody.
Yes.
As a question, feel free to chime in if you guys ever want to comment on any of these. Thank you for the $5. Are the Times article where they talk about having fortified the election? Yeah.
Such democracy.
This is last
I
one.
didn't read that one. You should post it.
Yeah. Thank you for the $10, Morgan. The powers that be chose to forcibly spread democracy because it's the easiest for them to subvert. It should be obvious to everyone that they do that at home too, and they've been doing it for decades. 100% on point, right. Morgan. Always love our community. Always coming with the fire. Thank you guys for the super chats. I want to pass it to Missy first. Tell us about that amazing action that you got coming up.
Oh, you guys. Okay, so I'm not going to announce any speakers yet because I don't want to get ahead of myself. But we do have some unbelievable people already lined up. I'm so excited. It's going to be a really fantastic event. So it's going to be on Saturday, October 8th in DC. It's a global day of actions. There are actions happening all across the globe. There's London, there's Australia, multiple events in Australia, Germany, Italy. There's one in Vegas. There's going to be one in Tulsa. There's going to be one in Boston. They're all over the place. So you can go to Candles for Assange. It's the number 4. Alex Hills does a great job of kind of collecting all of the global events and then shooting them out from one Twitter account so everybody can stay updated with all the events near you. But it's a global day of action. They're going to surround Parliament in London. Stella Morris is going to be there, which is Julian Assange's wife. So it's just another global day of action. Julian Assange is literally a hair's breadth away from being extradited. He just submitted his perfected grounds for appeal, and we should have a decision any minute. It could happen any minute on whether or not they are going to choose to hear his appeal. It's not looking good. Come on. We're not going to get, again, as we just talked about, we're not going to free Julian Assange through the courts or because they, want to do the right thing. We're going to have to force it. It's going to take mass public pressure. So if you are in the DC area or you can make it to the DC area on Saturday, October 8th, we would love to have you. I'm not joking when I say we have some real fire speakers already lined up and we're working on getting more as we speak. There are lots of people helping me working behind the scenes to make this a really amazing event. So if you can make it to DC, please do. We also have a GoFundMe if you can contribute to that. I would love to have like a stage and sound system because we have really fire speakers. So I would really love to have like a legit setup for them to come and speak at. So please make it out. If you can't make it out, find an event near you. If you can't find an event near you, be an event near you. It literally only takes a poster board, a Sharpie, and a sidewalk. Instant protest. There you go. Couple bucks, you're done. So yeah, please, we need lots and lots and lots and lots of help. It's go time. I mean, he's not doing well by all accounts. No surprise. So yeah, and it's not just about him. This is about all of us. It's about all of our ability to know the truth. Truth matters. It really does. And currently we are not living in the truth. We are living in a manufactured reality. And this is kind of ground zero for that. So if you can make it out, please do.
Right. Misty always doing great work for not just Julian Assange, but for the free press in general. Always very impressed with the actions that you host. So make sure you guys show some love and come out if you are in the DC area to that event. Also, Lucy was with the Camp Data with Sabby, who had to leave because she got a big interview with Cornel West coming up. She always doing great stuff. Anything you want to plug or promote, Lucy? Anything you want to shout out before we
our
wrap
event
up?
is over, and I'm probably not going to organize the next ones because I'm kind of tired. So, but I think
take a rest. Take a rest.
I feel that.
Yeah, I think there will be a southern or a western Camp Data. So for anybody that wants to help with that, that's exciting. Actually, people really liked it a lot more than we thought because there's a lot of arguing on Twitter and like a lot of negativity and a lot of bullshit and a lot of ops, honestly. And like,
I just shut it out. It's just not real. Twitter is a place where I rant. That's it.
Yeah, it's terrible. It is so bad. I've organized like non-political events, and this is probably definitely like the worst lead up to an event in my life, and it's probably because it was political, like horrible. Definitely there's gonna when we actually got there, the people that actually showed up were wonderful, like awesome, not easily divided by identity politics, willing to.
That's generally how it goes.
Yeah, like people from different political parties came, like people from different regions of the country. It was great. It was fantastic. But so I think, if anybody wants to participate in the southern one or the western Camp Data, it might really expand because people liked it a lot. So, the idea for it was basically to bring people together around different topics. Because for a lot of the other actions, it's like Medicare for all, free speech, and those things are all great, but we kind of have to build a relationship between each other first in order to say, okay, let me stop and focus on what you want to do for 10 minutes so that after that, you'll focus on what I want to do for 10 minutes. So like we devote a little bit of time at the camp to different action items. So that's like the idea basically for Camp Data is not to focus on anything specific, and it really worked out. So
and I was going to add this because that's an important point. Don't allow these online internet beefs to divide real anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist movements. I saw this in real time when I was at the George Floyd protest, when I spoke at the March for Medicare for All. When you meet real lefties who are actually about this game, you realize that all the online bullshit is driven by bots, CIA ops. Like we don't have to accuse anyone, but it's very fucking obvious the people who are meant to divide.
Not even just leftists. Everybody.
Exactly. We had tour for the poor. I met there were a lot of Casey people. There were the few people that travel here. When we had Rome down here, I met a lot of people from quote unquote left Twitter. That's how they heard about the event. It was really cool. Like it's like none of this online, like that shit is not real. And I learned that a long time ago. Like I'm on Twitter just to rant and talk shit. I do not take any stock in it at all. Cause it's just bullshit. Did not allow it to divide us. And that's just a great point. Cause when Lucy met with Sabby and many lefties, it came down, like I said, it went great. But anyway,
and seriously, pay attention really quickly. Pay attention to those people who spend all of their time attacking activists and organizers and people trying to get things done and make excuses for people in power. Those are obvious. And there are seriously people who spend their entire day hate stalking my Twitter feed or Nick's Twitter feed so that they can take screenshots and outrage harvest from my Twitter feed to find things to be mad about. If you're focused on some chick in Ohio, I have no power. I have no influence. I have no money. Like I'm just some chick in Ohio. If you're focused on me, it's
I just want to do talking shit on Twitter. Now I just be talking shit on Twitter and people be furious. I'm like, bro,
I use it to talk shit and hide my activism. That's it.
And so, like, if you see someone who spent all their time bitching about Jimmy Dore or any activist instead of calling out power, that's an op, whether they admit it or not. But anyway, me and Missy, we can rant about this forever. I'm gonna get Fiorella in here. Anything you want to plug, promote? Any last thoughts you have?
Yeah, find somebody who loves you, like the people that love to make a parody of me. And literally, whenever I update my profile picture, they update their profile picture. They watch everything, every show that I do. They're more fans of me than like anybody I know. It's
they're
here
crazy. Right now. They're here. Hi.
Yes, they're watching. Right Hi.
Yeah. Hello.
So
get a plant.
So well, Pasta and I are going to be going to Brazil soon at the end of the month for the election, which is on October 2nd. It's a very important election. It's Lula versus Bolsonaro. There's so many clear differences between the two. You know, Lula's definitely for the working class. You can tell just by the people that support them. However, we're going there because we want to make sure the election is fair, because already Bolsonaro is saying the election is unfair. Lula's already saying that the people are afraid that Bolsonaro is going to he's going to contest the results. There's all of this happening. It's an important election because Brazil is like one of the main, most important economies of South America. And because, as you guys have seen, they're electing more and more progressive to more radical governments. Not all of them are on the same exact political realm, but they're definitely electing people that are actually more representative of where they're at, wherever it is that they're at. So that's a huge shift. They're shifting away from the West. There's literally, you know, this whole talk about multipolarity and all of that, whatever that means. You know, we could discuss that in a whole other panel, but basically it's just shift away from the West towards sovereignty. And it's a lot of important things are happening in Latin America. And I'm going to go there, look at those elections to again, come back with more examples about how our elections suck. And so I'll be doing, you know, the combo couch until then. We're raising also money for that, because to get me out of Moscow because of the sanctions, it is ridiculously expensive just to literally fly out. It used to take like no time at all. And now it takes like, you know, hours and hours of travel, and it's expensive, and you can only go through certain airlines. And it's just a problem, especially going into the United States. I might have problems. Leaving the United States, I might have problems because of working at RT. So there's a lot of issues right now. And so other than that, I'll be on RT this month corresponding, and you can catch it on Rumble because or Odyssey or Gab, because obviously it's off YouTube. So thanks for inviting me. It was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
As always, my friend. Make sure you guys check out all my amazing guests. And make sure you guys stay tuned. Savvy got a great show coming up. We had a lot of great content that come to you this week. So please show some love. Like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon so we can continue to do this great work. I appreciate you guys. Love and respect to all you guys. Have a great weekend, guys. I'm going to take the rest of the weekend off. I'll see you guys on Monday for Nick and CJ. JB show will be on Sunday. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good one, guys.